You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
What would it look like if business owners did what people in homeless encampments do? What would that look like? Interesting, right? What if business was handled like things were in the homeless encampments? You just leave your trash everywhere. You do whatever you want, shoot a bunch of drugs, do some criming, all that good stuff. What if businesses operated that way? How would that work? Would the fabric of society be impacted? That's what we're going to talk about today here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Before we jump on in, if you're new, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, and I read the news from that perspective. In spite of me being from the Seattle area, some people say I might even be reasonable, the other R word in Seattle. So this is a commentary. If business owners did what homeless do, and it's by the producer Phil Vandervoort, and he is with KVI Talk Radio here in Seattle. Good article. The last 48 hours in Seattle and Olympia will have produced 3 significant sweeps of long-term, unsanctioned, and patently illegal homeless camps. Number 1, down in Olympia, state capital. Oh, it's beautiful down there. Or it was until homeless kind of set in, right? The Olympia Deschutes Parkway encampment. The Seattle Ballard Commons. I've talked about that a lot. We've shot video that's being edited right now. That just got swept. So literally in about a 3-day period, we had 3 major homeless encampments get swept. And in Seattle, the Broadview Thompson K through 8, that was on public school property. That was one that I talked about a lot from the standpoint of is right next door to a school, kindergarten through 8th grade, and basically an elementary school with a little middle school in there. The kids were just seeing all kinds of crazy adult content out the window of their school. Not good. Not good at all. All 3 of those homeless encampments got swept. And it was kind of a big deal. There wasn't much opposition to it. And what happened is on the Seattle ones, the Ballard Commons and the Broadview Thompson K through 8, they spent a lot of time leading up to these sweeps getting people options for housing. So they're doing it a little bit differently. Some are saying, hey, yeah, this is the way to go. The whole thing is just a mess and it's not good. And I actually did an interview yesterday with the person spearheading and the person that founded We Heart Seattle. And I've mentioned her before numerous times here in the podcast. Her name is Andrea Suarez, and she recently got in trouble for picking up other people's trash from city parks. The local government said, you should not be involved. This isn't your thing. This isn't your dealio. This is no good. You can't be involved. You're confusing the issue by picking up trash. So I did an interview with Andrea Suarez yesterday. Very interesting. A lot of good perspectives that came out of that. So I'll be really interested. We'll probably put out like a 10-minute video on that. And it's just a different perspective. It's a perspective from somebody boots on the ground. And she had some really, really interesting things to say. So we'll get into that. And when I release that video, I'll let you know. So there's back to the article, though. So we got 3 major encampments that have been swept. And the Ballard Commons, I've read about that one a million times. It's had just all kinds of craziness go on. And it's swept. There's something unspoken about cities like Seattle and Olympia that manage to enable homelessness instead of preventing it. The cleanup costs. That's one of the huge things, right? We all act like, here in Seattle, we've got the Climate Pledge Arena. We changed it from Key Arena to the Climate Pledge Arena. It's like, really? Really? Because just walk around outside and see what kind of pledge the homelessness issue has done for the environment. What does that look like? Oh, let's see. We got needles. We got garbage. We got pallets. We've got rodent infestation. When they clean out these camps, these homeless encampments, the cities oftentimes spend $500,000 of taxpayer money putting these parks back together. It's a multi-month-long process. So that's what the argument of people, they're just unhoused, just let them do their own thing. They're not hurting anybody. They are, and they're hurting the environment. That's one of the things. So cleanup costs. The cleanup cost with the existing policies, the cost falls to the taxpayers. We pick up the bills. If a business piled up trash, failed to pay for garbage collection, and chronically left refuse all around the property, the cities of Olympia and Seattle would instantaneously issue fines and liens on the property owner. But that won't happen with unsanctioned homeless camps. So do you see the massive double standard? I mean, I know you do. That's a rhetorical question, but massive double standard. You can do whatever you want if you're homeless. Literally, you can do whatever you want outside of the law. That's, you got to break some major laws to get in trouble here in Seattle. And that's if 911 will even send out a police officer to you. It's come down to that, right? If a business owner in either city violates even the slightest part of a long list of city codes, a citation and fine will be imposed toot sweet on the Johnny spot. But that won't happen with unsanctioned homeless camps. There are additional examples of how elected officials and politicians in Seattle and Olympia like to impose strict rules on business owners. $15 or higher minimum wage, paid sick leave, paid family leave, advanced scheduling, etc. But there are no such demands for accountability when it comes to homeless people. And I'd like to add to that, living in our parks, in our city parks. It's really interesting that state parks, they don't have a homeless issue. State parks that I've been at, and I've heard this statement been made multiple times. They keep them clean. That's really interesting. But city parks, just you do whatever you want. It's okay. Hey, and we'll bring in some porta potties for you. We'll bring in the Portland Loo for you. That's the $550,000 toilet and sink. Not even a sink. It's just kind of just this water deal. $550,000 for that in the Ballard Commons. The actual toilet itself is like $100,000, $20,000 for installation, the actual physical installation of the toilet, but setting up all the engineering and all of the sewer line and the water line, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, you can do whatever you want, and we're going to bring you, portable, we're going to bring you toilets, and we're going to bring you food, and we're going to give you clean needles, and we're going to have people come by and pick up your garbage, even though we've got a dumpster in there for you, and you don't seem to be able to get that in there. And you play music loud at night and, just kind of do whatever you want. Deal drugs, sell stuff out of there. You got all that stuff going on. Everybody knows it. It's just out in the open. Well, what if a business did that? Oh, it'd be shut down immediately. The public outcry. Oh, horrible. If you chose to be, which a lot of them do, or end up homeless, choosing to be homeless, that is a real thing that nobody really wants to talk about. A lot of folks say they're just down on their luck. Okay, yeah, but they're choosing to do an inordinate amount of drugs. They're in the throes of an addiction for a large percentage of them. Some of them, small percentage, have maybe 5% of the homeless population, Andrea Suarez is telling me, have a mental issue that's preventing them from integrating in society the way that they should, and they can't figure it out. They can't get themselves together. But maybe around 85%, somewhere between 80 and 90%, have addiction issues. They're in the throes of addiction issues, and they are choosing to live the homeless lifestyle because that's where they can do it and get away with it. And, they're on the dole, and we've got all this other stuff set up for them to just basically do their thing. It's kind of brutal. And yet, if you're a legitimate tax-paying citizen, oh, no siree. The government will have none of that. You need to pay your taxes. We're going to fine you. The rules simply don't apply to you in these jurisdictions if you end up homeless. Meanwhile, try to play by the rules as a business owner, and everything gets more and more complicated with a never-ending list of rules and requirements for which to abide. Seattle and Olympia, political progressives love to cite or complain about the wealth gap or the gender pay gap. But these political progressives have produced an accountability gap. And there seems to be no thought to ever addressing that gap in places like Seattle or Olympia. So Andrea Suarez goes out and collects garbage and is told by Seattle City council member, don't do that. That's not your business. You're interfering. All right. We're interfering with you not providing a solution to having our parks overrun until it's so bad, you end up doing a sweep. I mean, yeah, there's a massive accountability gap. And when you look at some of this stuff, you're just like, even just traveling into downtown Seattle yesterday, the first major exit to get off in downtown Seattle, there are tents literally on the side off ramp, just boom, right there. I mean, it's just, that's number one, that's a horrible place to live. And number two, it just looks hideous. It looks hideous. And yet our politicians are like, nothing to see here. We're good with it. It's not that bad. I had one of you faithful listeners / viewers send me a text saying that the Los Angeles police union president basically sent out a notice saying, hey, if you're a tourist, don't come to LA. It's too dangerous here. Too dangerous. No go. Don't come to LA. I mean, that's kind of the message we're sending by having tents on the side of the road and just massive piles of garbage and crap and just, all that stuff, just right on the main freeway entrance into the city of Seattle, into downtown. It's like, okay, what third world country are we coming to? Oh yeah, over there in the skyline, there's a Space Needle. We're in Seattle. Never mind. Not a third world country. It's Seattle. It's grungy. We like it. Kurt Cobain, all that good stuff. So political reactionaries who take exception with what I write here from the standpoint of the guy writing this, the producer, political reactionaries who take exception with what I write here about the relative level of accountability between elected officials, business owners, and the homeless will call me heartless, or perhaps something more incendiary. I wouldn't say you're heartless. I would say you are pointing out something that is wildly obvious, but nobody wants to talk about because people put business owners in that position of, well, you have responsibilities. You should actually be following the law and doing something. Okay, but then there's that gap. There's zero accountability for the folks who I'm paying for through my taxes. And as a tax-paying citizen, I am paying for them and they have zero accountability. How's that work out? Well, yeah, come look at some of our parks. You'll see. Yeah, take a good look. Oh, yeah, not so good. So if that's your impulse, reading my thoughts, my question for you is, why should economic resources, or lack thereof, predicate who should and shouldn't follow, quote unquote, the rules? Rich or poor, we know what's right and wrong as adults. Let me think about that. Rich or poor, whether you have money or not. That does make sense, doesn't it? Whether you have money or not, you know what's right or wrong. You know it's right or wrong to leave that garbage there, right? To sleep in a tent in our parks. I probably wouldn't be upset about this, but I am realizing more and more that a lot of these folks that are in our parks in Seattle, they're not from Seattle. They're getting shipped here from other areas. They just flat out are. That's become pretty obvious, right? Folks are coming here, and these are not necessarily the creme de la creme of society. They're coming here because we enable them. We just do. It's like, go to Seattle. Why would I go to Seattle? They'll give you stuff. Free-addle. It's free-addle. So rich or poor, we do know what's right and wrong as adults. Again, yeah, it's totally right. It's just 100% right. There's no excuse for piling up trash, homeless or not, business owner or not. Seattleites proudly claim to be environmentalists, protecting and defending the environment while simultaneously allowing city parks, even school property next to a wetland, Bitter Lake, any greenbelt or freeway overpass to become a veritable landfill that requires millions of dollars collectively for all these parks to get cleaned up. How many millions of dollars did they spend down in Echo Park down in LA? I mean, that's a big park. They swept out, a couple hundred tents? What was the impact there? I was reading about the rat infestation problem they had at, was it Ballard Commons? I can't remember which one it was. But they would literally pull up the tents and pull up the tarps that have been on the ground for, close to a couple of years now in some of these areas. And there are literally these burrows underground under these, and it's a maze of, rats running around. It's a rat maze, like a mice maze, but a rat maze. If that doesn't impact the environment, I don't really know what does, because those are typically there because there's a lot of garbage and stuff that they can eat. So that's not environmentally sound to have our parks and our wetlands become a veritable landfill. Let me think about that one again. No. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. What's the carbon footprint for these cleanup crews? Trucks hauling garbage. We bring in the Department of Transportation, SDOT. That's from Deschutes Parkway to Ballard Commons and Bitter Lake Park. Now multiply that carbon footprint for the numerous sweeps of unsanctioned camps that politicians only address after conditions, either criminal, sanitary, or a combination, get out of control. That's what's happening. They're just letting it go. It's okay. Just let it go. Let it happen. It's all right. It's all right. They're homeless. They're not doing anything bad. They're just down on their luck. They need a sandwich. So much of this stuff is just, it's not true. It's just flat out not the case. Government Jay Inslee's demanding every program, precaution, and tax under the sun to protect the environment from fossil fuel pollution, otherwise known as climate change. But yet this champion of environmental protection continues to be silent when it comes to the ecological degradation he overlooks from his governor's mansion on Deschutes Parkway in Olympia. Does seem like a little bit of a double standard, doesn't it? Yeah. I believe in this thing, but this one over here that's kind of connected, not so much, because it doesn't help my narrative. I'm just going to ignore that one. We're all guilty of that to some extent, to some degree, because we want to believe what we want to believe. But the whole homeless encampment thing, just going wildly out of control, that's a pretty obvious one. And it's really, how about the whole issue of used needles in the environment? You want to talk about something that is toxic for the environment? Here you go. Here's 100 needles. They just give them out in big settings to, dozens and dozens and dozens of homeless all day long. Just giving out clean needles. Now you might say, all right, that's good. But the problem is that you might say that's good from the standpoint of they're not using a dirty needle. All right. Are we enabling here? Yeah, it feels like that, right? But the problem is the used ones, they don't end up in a hazardous waste container, do they? They just dump them on the ground, just drop them off wherever. So literally these cleanup crews, including Andrea Suarez from My Heart Seattle, they pick up thousands and thousands of needles. I've talked about my experience, riding my jet skis around Lake Union, which is right in the middle of Seattle. And, there are so many needles out there that the little orange caps on top, those wash through the storm drain system and out into the lakes and out into the rivers. I mean, and so you ride a jet ski around, you go more up at just any public park, it's got a little bit of a beach area. You're bound to find either a needle or a cap or a syringe or, or a combination of all those things. You're bound to. It's just normal. It's normal. That's how bad the issue has gotten. And yet we just like, it's okay. It's Seattle. We're good with it. It's all right. Nothing to see here. We're good. So this is more duplicity from Governor Inslee and the respective elected officials of Olympia and Seattle. They only care about the environment when it's politically opportune. Oof. Oh, that's a shot right there. Be in favor of protecting the environment all the time, or just be honest with us and tell us your environmental protection is strictly limited to raising taxes for your pet projects. Oh, that's a shot as well. But you know what? Those things are true. It's wildly true. Businesses, you need to do this. Tax Amazon, we need to do this. We need to do this, and this. Homeless, you guys do whatever you want until it gets so bad that we can't ignore it anymore. And then we'll be forced to do something. But citizens volunteering to pick up garbage, you guys need to stay home. That's a hard no-go. We can't have you interfering with government in an action. Oh, that's not what we're doing here. It's crazy, right? Homelessness in Seattle, enormous issue. Public safety and homelessness, those are huge problems. And, the crossover and comparing it to businesses. I mean, what if businesses did that? We'd immediately, you're on the chopping block. You don't have a permit? How about a permit to sleep in a public park in your tent? How about that? There's no permit for that because it's illegal. And we're not enforcing it. But we're enforcing the businesses, the ones who their taxes go to pay all this stuff. How does this system work? Is this for the people, by the... I forget. It's all so confusing, right? Yeah, it's nutty. But just think about that the next time, the whole homeless thing. What if you ran a business like a homeless encampment? What if you were a welding company? And you just just toss it out in the street, toss it in the sidewalk, all that scrap metal, just put it on the side of the public road. It's okay. Take your grinder out there at 2 a.m, do some work, get a little Metallica going and get your grinder out and just start working on your metal project, whatever it is. Maybe a blowtorch. I don't know, whatever makes the most noise. Maybe a Sawzall cutting a car in half because you're a junkyard. I don't know, something along those lines. If you did that and if you were a legit business, how quickly do you think you'd get shut down? Yeah, but you do that as a homeless person, it's okay. It's all right. They're just doing their thing. I did talk with Andrea Suarez about Lawnmower Man, and she recently got a hat from him, and that's going to come up in the video as well. But just some wild stuff out there, some wild stories where you're like, yeah, if a business did that, sayonara, see you later. You'd be done. You'd be toast. But that's not how it's going. We just, it's okay. We're all right with that one. Politically, we're okay with that one. Sleep wherever you want. Do whatever you want. We'll fix it later. We'll get to it later. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being part of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I will catch up with you soon. Until then, stay safe. We'll talk again. Bye for now.